could hear where he was.
What were you hearing?
Dirt and
Digging?
yeah, shovel noises and water. I could hear water. I heard him pouring water. I remember him running to the car saying they found her.
Who is he?
Highly sophisticated. He wants you to think he is absolutely crazy. He has a lot of people fooled. He's calculated.
To some,
He liked the attention.
He loved the attention. He wore weird shoes, wore weird shirts, shorts all the time. Just he always looked like he was always gonna just got off a plane from Hawaii.
He had a charming side a little bit too sometimes, where he was down to earth.
to others,
I wrote a letter to him. He's kind of an arrogant guy.
to most,
A piece of me feels like this monster is out to get me next.
My opinion on that is that he's just a sick, psychopathic killer.
He's probably the most sophisticated and intelligent criminal and murderer I've ever investigated.
The thing about Vegas is it's a news town. I mean, there's nothing real about it. It's all fake. You've got that underbelly in Vegas that you don't have in other cities. So when a girl goes missing, oftentimes they just assume she's a prostitute. Bodies would show up in the desert and it would be a prostitute and never solved. I'm a true crime author and journalist.
Kathy Scott unexpectedly found herself in Sin City in the 90s.
The Las Vegas Sun had a job opening as a police reporter. That started in November, and that's the job I took. I love a good story, and I love chasing after it.
The flashing lights, the shows, the glitz, the extravagance. There's an allure to this city that draws people in.
People really knew what was going on in Vegas. They'd run screaming for the hills.
But for some, they never get out.
Jeff Roskin, and I'm a retired detective with the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. Back in 1997, I was assigned a missing persons detail.
2-6 hold down to Lamar.
The name Ginger Rios came over the scanner. A 20-year-old, newly married to a man who worked at the paper with Kathy, Mark Hollinger.
I think it was a photographer or one of the editors came up very quietly and said to me, "Do you know what's going on?"
On Friday night, Mark and Ginger were driving down Maryland Parkway, and they had previously been to a furniture store and looking for furniture for their new house. And as they walked out of that, they saw a spy store.
A spycraft store, in a weird way, playing into the temptation of Las Vegas.
She says, "Hey, let me pull in and get that book, and I want to read up on it and see if I can improve our credit score a little bit." She says, "Hey, I'll run in real quick and get it, and you can just wait out here." And he thought that was a good idea because he liked to smoke. Ginger wouldn't let him smoke around her, so it gave him the opportunity to have a cigarette. So Ginger went in the store alone.
It would be a quick trip in and out. Mark finished his cigarette and waited. Ginger hadn't come back. He went inside to talk to the owner, John Flowers.
He says, "Hey, did a young gal with long, straight black hair, about 5'6", walk in?" He goes, "Yeah, she came in, bought a book, and left." Mark's like, "Well, she must be shopping at one of the other stores around here." So he goes looking, doesn't find anything, goes back, talks to John Flowers again, says, "Hey, he says, "Hey, I told you. She came in here and bought a book and left. I don't know what to tell you." And he's holding his baby at the time, so Mark's like, "Okay." So he starts kind of driving around, going behind the alley in the back.
My name is George Rios. My daughter is Ginger Rios. I had worked that day till 7 o'clock. And upon arriving at the house, I saw our dining room table with a bunch of people sitting around it. One of the things it said to me was, "Ginger is missing."
Hi, Ginger.
I asked, "What do you mean she's missing?" She said, "We don't know where she is." And then they described to me the situation. Mark described to me what had happened, because he was the one that was the last one to see her. As he explained it to me, I was thinking, that doesn't make sense. So why would she go into the store and disappear?
First thing is you have to investigate the husband. His story sounds a little shaky. Sure, you're waiting outside a store while your wife goes in and you don't see her come out? Yeah, that just doesn't sound right. There was enough other information that there was a little bit of marital problems going on between her and her husband. Nothing super severe, but it could have been something like that. So there were those leads that were going on. Just didn't know for sure. So at that point, you just investigate everything you can.
Ginger's little sister had a thought.
Maybe her and Mark had gotten in an argument, and she decided to take a day or so off. And at the time, no one had cell phones.
What was a small detail to police was not to Daniela Rios.
The fact that, the items that she left in the car, I think that's what kind of started me thinking, well, she wouldn't have left her makeup in the car. And for her, she was so glammed up all the time. If she was planning to leave, she would have just taken her whole purse, So that just didn't add up to me.
So I got her on the phone, I called the business. I said, "Yeah, open." I said, "You're a surveillance spy type store. Do you have cameras?" He said, "Yes, we have cameras." "Do you have a video of Ginger coming into the store?" And he said, "Yes, we do." "Okay, we come by and look at it." "Sure, come on by."
Relief. The video had to show which way Ginger went.
Now this was about 8 o'clock, I guess. So we came by to the store. He had already locked up the store, and he was putting things into a big van. He said they were going to Phoenix, he and his wife, and baby.
Little did the Rios family know, the lies were only about to begin.
He said, "Well, I looked at the videos, and unfortunately they got taped over."
If there was a video of that, Flowers took it with him, after that Friday night when he left, and we were never able to find it.
And why police didn't take that videotape, I don't know.
The tape, the store, the van, the owner, the last words.
So I said, "Well, okay, we've seen you," and I shook his hand. Hey, that. And the bizarre part of this is later on when I thought about that episode, I shook the hand of the man who killed my daughter. It's as if she was meant to be a performer of some kind.
Hi, Ginger. Let's walk to the room.
Ginger had definitely a big personality. She was, an entertainer from day one, always doing silly things, cracking jokes, wanting to be on camera, on film. As my big sister, of course, I looked up to her a lot.
When she got a bit older, she started to take dance lessons. This is what she really was lived to be. She enjoyed that. She was just so full of life.
Just 20 years old, Ginger Rios was living her dream. A dancer in the group Salsa Machine, she'd perform at different casinos around Las Vegas. She was also a newlywed.
You can just see it, it's just beaming on her, She had just gotten married, so that part of her life was going very, very well.
Do you remember the last time you saw Ginger?
Yes. Well, she had been moving, and they were moving things into their new house. She thanked me for all the help that I had given her. And we parted with saying, "I love you."
I remember her coming into my room. She was wearing like a black tank top and jeans and cowboy boots, which is what she had on the next day as well.
That's what she entered the spy shop in, just before a new teenage employee showed up for his very first shift.
I was expecting just to pull up, walk in the shop, and there would be customers there. Well, I get to the door, and the door's locked.
Shop owner John Flowers has his wife Cheryl crack the door and let David Benson in, quickly shutting it behind him. Flowers then gives both of them directions.
And he says, oh, we'll just show him around a little bit. I got some cleaning up to do in the back room. And he's like, do you mind if I give you some money? Just run down the street to the Lucky's, the grocery store, and get me the largest trash bags you can get, because I'm cleaning up some stuff. I got back with the bags, gave them to him, and maybe 5-10 minutes passed. And then he came out like he was done cleaning up. And he says, oh, let me show you around the back room. So we go to the very back room where it's out to like the alleyway. And it's just all concrete floors. And he says, don't mind the smell. It was like really bleachy smell, like he had just washed it down. And it was really strong because he said that's where the dogs use the restroom.
David didn't think much of it until a man shows up outside the spy shop. It was Ginger's dad.
He was outside walking around and asking about her and stuff, because he even, I believe, if I remember correctly, talked to me and was like, hey, have you seen a girl or something? I was like, I don't know, I just got here. I was like, I just got a new job.
Confused, David asks John Flowers about it.
And he says, oh, well, Vegas, girls are always missing, and kind of downplayed it. He has cameras outside the shop, inside the shop, and I was like, hey, if you weren't involved, just show him the video of her walking out. And to me, it was simple. It was like slam dunk. Show the video of her walking out, and we'll move on with life.
Flowers reassures him.
I had the footage of her leaving the store, so I was like, okay. But then later in the day, he changed his story. Now he's saying that the video was copied over.
Flowers tells David he's heading to Phoenix with Cheryl and their baby, leaving the teen in charge for the next couple days, at a job he had barely even started. David remembers the ominous words John Flowers left him with.
He's like, listen, if the police show up, don't ever let them in unless they have a search warrant.
For weeks, Ginger's distraught husband and father canvassed the area, posting flyers and asking questions.
There's Fry's and Target, Office Max. There was a Wells Fargo right there.
It was an unremarkable Phoenix street corner, a strip mall, typical of 90s suburban life.
There was a Blockbuster Video and a Sally's Beauty Supply.
Doug Stauffer owned the sandwich shop there, Sub Factory. A new tenant was moving in.
Oh, wow, cool. Awesome, a spy shop, great. That's different.
What did the spy shop look like?
Gray, had some blue lights. It's really cool, actually. He had little spy cameras and all that stuff, and knives and T-shirts of canine and police on them and stuff like that. I still have one of those shirts.
The owner, John Flowers. He was expanding his franchise from Vegas to Phoenix. Doug quickly learned that came with bizarre antics to boot.
One time he came in with two huge knives that kind of curved out and had spikes all on the thing, and he goes, look at these new knives I got, check them out. I go, dude, get out of here, what are you doing? You're scaring the shit out of my customers.
Despite Flowers' oddities, Doug became close with his wife Cheryl and remembers working the day she and Flowers came rolling into the parking lot after a long road trip from Vegas.
Cheryl was just a mess.
Describe it.
Looked like she was bawling her head off, eyes red, puffy, hair a mess. I knew it was about John, but I didn't know what it was about. She didn't want to talk about it, and I didn't really want to ask either.
What Doug didn't know was the day before, Ginger Rios had gone missing from their Vegas shop. It begged the question if anyone knew the true John Flowers at all.
Different. That's it. Just you meet a guy and you kind of go, odd, a little different. But nothing that I never thought he was lying. I never thought anything he wasn't telling the truth.
Doug was wrong, really wrong. His life of lies began years before, in Florida. John Flowers was arrested several times, the mastermind behind a computer heist taken down in 1991.
John had gotten involved in stealing high-end computer chips and whatnot and was attempting to work as an informant.
He told people different things.
He had told me that when I met him that he worked for the FBI. He was an FBI agent, he was undercover, stuff like that. And he had all this paperwork. He had tons of paperwork in the car, I do remember that.
He was a government informant. He was a DEA agent. It differed depending on the day, but he had people fooled. Flowers' Florida neighbors worked at a law firm next door to the FBI office. He stole their keys and crept inside, attaching a device to the wall.
He bugged the FBI's office and proceeded to attempt to extort an FBI agent and harass him and his family.
His checkered past was catching up to the present.
The feds are also investigating John Flowers for selling illegal listening devices and spy devices that are not legal that he had obtained through the black market and that he was selling in his shop.
They show up at the Phoenix Spycraft store for that investigation. Flowers wasn't there, but his wife was.
The feds come in, they serve a search warrant here in Phoenix, Arizona on the spy store, and she's there working and immediately runs to these agents and says, "Please help me."
All hell breaks loose.
He had Cheryl Chacon there, and she had something to tell us.
I can finally tell them what is going on. This agent is completely confused because he now has John Flowers' wife telling him he killed a woman named Ginger Rios from Las Vegas and he buried her in the desert.
He gives me a call and says there's something happening in Phoenix, and we're going down there to find out what's going on. So I'm still very hopeful.
You think she might be
That
alive?
she may be down there or something, alive, absolutely alive.
After this bizarre confession from John Flowers' wife, the detective says to her,
"Take me out to the desert that you're talking about." So they drive out there and she walks up over this hill, and that's when she realizes the concrete's still there. Ginger, this is where Ginger's at. So that's when the investigation for Las Vegas has its break.
I get a phone call. My wife, Denise, picks up the phone and she says that Jeff wants to talk to you. So he's on the phone and he's telling me what they found in the desert, that she was there, the desert.
It was just the most heartbreaking experience and just traumatic, you know, just felt like I couldn't breathe.
After the phone call, I probably did the hardest thing a father, a husband, didn't tell his wife that they found Ginger's body. Not Ginger, but Ginger's body. The hardest thing I've ever had to do.
but there was another girl, a body recently discovered by hunters.
What's the probability that two young girls who are buried side by side in the middle of the most remote part of the desert, like that doesn't just happen by chance?
John Flowers was 10 steps ahead of authorities, going on the run to California until he was caught days later.
I flew out to LA to interview John at the jail there. He did admit to killing Ginger, but he gave this crazy story that she had, threatened that she wanted $40,000 or his baby for some weird thing that he came up with. It just didn't make sense.
Investigators have two questions. What exactly happened to Ginger Rios? And who is Jane Doe? Ginger comes into the store that day in April.
Flowers had Cheryl, his wife, go get some film for him.
We know that his motive was to get his wife out of the store so he could be alone with Ginger.
And she said when she came back that her husband, John, told her, "I've done something bad, don't go in the back room."
She starts becoming concerned, like, what is he doing back there? What is going on? She forces her way to the back of the room, and that's where she discovers what she describes as the pretty young girl who had come into the store is laying down. There is a pool of blood around her head, and she appears lifeless.
In fact, you said that you wanted to give us the confession. Yeah. So everybody trying to know what really happened, because nobody really knows what happened, except for me. She walked in the store, and I ended up hitting her. I heard something crunch, and blood was coming out of her mouth.
From the moment Cheryl saw Ginger on the ground, that's when the threats were, well, now you see what I can do to someone.
She said that he then choked her, kind of held her where she would look at Ginger and said, "Don't tell anybody about this, or I will kill you and I'll kill our baby as well."
He'd always told her, I'll bury you in the desert somewhere. There's bodies everywhere. It won't be hard for me to get rid of you. No one will ever find you again.
Do you think the trash bags you were sent out to go get were used for Ginger?
Yeah, I do.
John Flowers and Cheryl then find a gym bag.
We tried to stuff a Ginger in there as best we could, and put her in the back of the car.
Was the bag leaking?
Yeah, blood was everywhere.
Their young family in the front and Ginger in the back of the van dead, they take off toward Arizona.
Why did you end up where we ended up, at that gravesite? I mean, that's a long way out there. I mean, there's a lot of desert between here and there.
Yeah, we just kept on driving, didn't know what to do.
You hadn't been there before?
No.
Okay. So it wasn't like a place you were familiar with? Okay.
Detectives don't believe Cheryl ever knew about a second body, only about Ginger. A man had come forward days after Ginger Rios went missing with information, not on Ginger, but on John Flowers.
There's an individual who sees the paper and sees the story, and he's like, I know this man. I worked for him. So he calls up Las Vegas Police Department, and he basically states, hey, I think I can give you some information that might help because I believe there's more victims than Ginger Rios. Like, I drove this man back and forth from Phoenix.
It was one story this man shared in particular that stuck with detectives.
He was in Bullhead City, and John disappears and says, I'll be right back. Do not get out of this car, whatever you do. And he listens to him, and he gets bored and starts going through the glove box of this vehicle where he finds women's rings. The quantity was such that he didn't believe it just was one woman. He believed that these were items that belonged possibly to multiple women.
The only other thing that's in that truck, if you're talking about it now, there was lipstick on the floor, 2 of them. He said, throw them out.
And upon realizing John was, being convicted for a homicide, he wanted to help and point investigators in the direction that he was certain there was the possibility that there were more victims out there.
Some things never leave a detective's mind. That story about girls' rings stuck with them because their Jane Doe, who they believed was a young girl, was found buried with a ring. It had the letter M on it.
And when I asked him about the other girl, he gave me a name. He said that he had met her here in Nevada, out at Lake Mead. That he had brought her back to the store, and he had sex with her, choked her to death and killed her, and then drove her back down to Phoenix and took her out in the desert and buried her.
That was his story.
That was his story.
Okay, now who is the girl that you're talking about? Mary Stoddard.
Who is Mary Stoddard?
He had told investigators that he had killed this woman. He claimed at one point her name was Mary Stoddard.
He said that her father was a doctor or a chiropractor or something. Couldn't find anyone with that last name as a chiropractor anywhere. No, exhaustive searches came up with nothing.
2 bodies, 1 killer. The discovery there were 2 girls found at John Flower's burial site was startling. But was Jane Doe really Mary Stoddard?
I was able to find a Mary Stoddard in Florida who John Flowers actually lived with at one point in time.
She was alive.
When I approached Miss Stoddard about John Flowers, wanting details of, can you tell me, did he live with you? What was the circumstances? This woman looked like she had seen a ghost.
Mary Stoddard was a dead end for more information and a dead end for the case. There were no other leads on who Jane Doe was.
MySpace comes out and I'm looking for friends. I find everybody from the old days. Now I can't find Christina. I find all her cousins, I find her sister. And of course I'm gonna ask them, like, hey, where's Christina? How's Christina doing? I was Christina's best friend from 3rd grade to 10th grade. We spent every minute together.
Valerie Young and Christina Martinez were thick as thieves together living in Phoenix, 15 years old, finding joy in their friendship and often emotional support when it felt like they had nowhere else to turn, both growing up in troubled households.
My first time getting taken away by CPS and then being returned is what really brought us together, because we realized that we had a lot in common.
Craig Jacobson had a spy shop on 7th Avenue and Camelback. I know that Florence Crittenden, where Christina sometimes stayed, it was a group home for girls. It's just down the street from 7th Avenue and Camelback.
Valerie remembers the only time they met the Spycraft store owner, John Flowers.
We go in there and we're talking smack about how this stuff is inappropriate. The teddy bears with the stuff in the eyes. And Christina's kind of rattling off, people only do this stuff and it's not cool to violate women and blah, blah, blah. And I realize he's locking the one door. So I say to Christina, why is he locking the door?
So they leave.
We literally think nothing of it. The last time I saw Christina, I didn't know it was gonna be the last time I saw Christina. I waved goodbye to her at the corner. It's about a week before her birthday.
Valerie never saw her again.
Christina was in and out of group homes towards the end there. I thought maybe something like that had happened, she got sent to Adobe or something.
So you think she's at another group home?
Yeah, I think, she's in a group home or something somewhere.
You weren't alarmed by the fact you hadn't heard from her?
I had no idea nothing was even wrong or that she was missing. It's not like she would disappear, is what I'm trying to say.
If she left, she would come back?
Yeah, she was either at my place the group home or her cousin's home.
Check out the incredibly popular...
When MySpace came about a decade later, so did her curiosity about her long-lost friend.
I started running MySpace for her.
When her profile doesn't come up, she reaches out to Christina's family.
And they reply, we don't know. We haven't seen her in years. I realized that nobody had seen Christina in years. Nobody's seen her. I'm the last one to see her. My heart, my gut was telling me something is not right. I was realizing that no one's gonna file a report for Christina, and if nobody files a report, no one's gonna know that she's gone. And if nobody knows she's gone, how are we gonna know where she is? Like, where is she? Number one, where is she?
I received a phone call from Valerie Young, who was Christina Martinez's best friend, and she begged me from the minute I picked up the phone to please just listen to her.
Phoenix detective Melissa Pulver has to rule something out first.
Christina was what we would consider even today a chronic runaway. I learned, though, that she had a little bit of troubled family history. Is this just a typical pattern of someone who's incorrigible, someone who doesn't want to abide by curfew?
Valerie is told,
if she's alive and well, the most we can do is let her know you're looking for her.
Melissa quickly uncovers some unsettling information.
I confirmed that she'd never gotten a driver's license. I contacted the Social Security office. Her Social Security number had not been used since 1997 when she had gone missing. We ran this case, what I call under the ground. We turned every stone, we turned it over, we looked, we did everything we possibly could. She's vanished off the face of the earth. The break in the case was when Pinell County decided to upload Jane Doe number 7 into the missing person database, and Doe Network ran with the profile.
They had a rendering of what they believed she looked like.
The revolving door just starts spreading like wildfire across the internet of, hey, this girl was found on May 10th, 1997. Does anybody know who she is?
I came across Christina as a Doe, and I knew her smile, her ring. We panhandled money to survive. We panhandled $150 to go to the indoor swap mart for that ring that she wore on her finger, the M ring.
The M ring? That couldn't be a coincidence.
I think we might have a match. The only thing different was the victim's hair was short, and we knew at the time, or we believed, that Christina had very long hair. I call up Valerie, hey, what was her hairstyle at the time? Oh, she'd recently cut it in a bobbed haircut. And it's like then your blood runs cold and you're just thinking everything is adding up.
I told the detective, I said, this is her. This is Christina.
Everything was going the detective's way until it wasn't.
We have really bad news for you. We don't know where she was buried. We don't have a sample. And just like the air just gets sucked out of my lungs.
Whoever had been contracted by the county to bury unidentified remains and paupers' graves and things like that, we're just basically taking multiple bodies and dumping them in a pit grave together. So there's no way that I could get the skull of this unidentified woman.
When you hear that, how frustrating is that to you?
It's very frustrated. And so now I'm back to square one again.
Just when everything feels hopeless, a saving grace.
So one of the things that I had gotten while we were down in Phoenix was a sample of the unidentified girl's DNA. And that was booked into evidence in Vegas.
Luckily, Jeff Rosgen had a femur bone sample.
That single action taken more than a decade earlier could be the only way to identify Jane Doe.
To be told this case will never be solved, it's like, watch me. We get the results back, and sure enough, it's Christina. We know from interviewing Cheryl and other victims that John's MO, his favorite thing to do was to strangle women. We can look at the autopsy report and see that she fought a good fight. She attempted everything she possibly could to get away from him. She had edged wounds to her hands.
When I heard that, I knew. I knew it was total Christina, because Christina would fight. I would kill to have another minute with Christina, to hear her voice, her laugh, to take care of her. You know, she's stuck in 15, 16, and in a lot of ways, so am I sometimes.
Looking at everything they had linked to John Flowers, Detective Jeff Roskin's gears started to turn.
Came up with a theory. And that theory is that doors were kind of like his spider web. He set them up, he's there, and he had a certain look of girl that he was looking for. He wanted these, 5'5" to 5'7", thin build, Hispanic, long straight black hair, attractive. And when somebody meeting that description came in, he would try to get everyone else out of the store, and then he would attack, and he would kill them.
John Flowers' manipulation didn't stop after his arrest. Flowers never went to trial for Ginger.
So we were told that he may not even go up for charge of homicide, but manslaughter. And he said there's a chance that he can get off more easily that way. And do you want to take the chance? So we took the plea because we wanted to limit the chance that he could be out in just a short period of time. We would love to have him put away forever, but that's not how it was going to turn out.
Ginger's father, George Rios, could barely face Flowers in the hearings.
It's like I'm looking at evil. It's not pretty, but you still look.
Are you mad it didn't go to trial?
Absolutely, because I truly think we should have and could have got life without the possibility of parole.
Flowers took an Alford plea.
This kind of plea means that he's basically acknowledging that the prosecution has enough evidence to convict him, but he's not actually saying, I did this, correct?
Correct. In 2003, he entered the Nevada Department of Corrections to serve a term of 20 years to life, eligible for parole in 2018. Detective Melissa Pulver was about to pay John Flowers a visit for the first time.
Will he be compelled to talk now that he knows the identity's been made on the other victim, or is he gonna do, typical John Flowers conspiracy theories? We travel up to Reno, Nevada. That's where he was incarcerated. I'll never forget, he walks into the room and he fills the room up instantly. It's just part of his psyche and his process. He wants everyone to know that he is there. He sat down, if I remember correctly, how can I help you guys? Like, he's right away wanting to be important. And we introduced ourselves, and the minute we said, we're from Phoenix, Arizona, he just stopped, went cold, and he had a pair of sunglasses, and he takes the sunglasses and he puts them on, and he starts telling me that he's hearing voices all of a sudden. And again, I know this is part of his game, and that they're telling him strange things and that he better leave. He gets up and he walks right out of the interview room. I mean, it was like a light switch.
Despite his silence, Flowers was extradited to Arizona in 2015 to face murder charges for Christina Martinez. They hoped this case would keep him behind bars for life.
We went to the hearings because we felt that we wanted to support them. We wanted them to feel that we care. We care about Christina.
But then, a delay. Flowers was ruled mentally incompetent to stand trial.
He bragged to his wife, if I ever get caught for the things that I've done, I'll just play crazy until they let me out. We've had the best psychologists analyze him, treat him, work with him, and they've all said this isn't real. This is acting.
In 2016, a judge ruled Flowers was faking being mentally incompetent to avoid standing trial, but by then, the state's case was crumbling.
What you find in these cold cases is that people age, their memory is not always the same. We learned by the time I had started my investigation that witness was already passed away. What do we do? How do we successfully prosecute this? We settled on a murder-to plea agreement with John.
Another plea deal.
16 years, 11 months, and 27 days with the plea agreement. John's going to serve that sentence, and he will get out, and he's going to reoffend. And we're going to be back at square one.
Adrenaline and pressure versus ticking time, a battle every single person he's impacted is now facing.
Do you believe there are more victims of John Flowers?
Absolutely.
I absolutely believe that John Flowers has killed more than just Christina Martinez and Ginger Rios. Absolutely.
Criminals don't become angels when they're in prison.
I don't think it's far-fetched or out of the ordinary that we could have additional locations elsewhere, whether it would be in the desert or anywhere between Vegas and Arizona or anywhere else nationwide.
The possible scope of this is terrifying.
Oh, absolutely. He wants to brag that he's this notorious serial killer, but he also doesn't want to shed any light into his other victims, their whereabouts.
We do know John Flowers visited Ginger and Christina's graves after he buried them multiple times. He was familiar with the area. Our team was about to head out to the desert.
I think that was his body dumping ground. And so that's why I think at some point there might be more that turn up, or bones, that turn up. I think that where there's smoke, there's fire, and there's probably more.
Greetings. This is Craig Jacobson. Please, how may I assist you?
Right there. We came out here about a year ago with the victims' families to make a memorial for both Christina and Ginger. And this is one of the crosses. Obviously, due to the elements and weather, it's not in its proper place.
It's a surreal moment standing in the desert with Detective Melissa Pulver, the place where this story seemingly ends. When you think middle of nowhere, this is it. Vast, desolate, silent.
I'm in the right general area, but it's just specific landmarkers to re-jog my memory. We took note of a very unique saguaro that was in the process of dying, and it's in absolute decay now.
It's hard to find the exact spots where Ginger and Christina's bodies were found. Old police reports from the 90s had vague directions and coordinates that only got us in the general area. Back in the day, it was John Flowers' wife, Cheryl, that led officers here.
She said he carried the body up over a hill, a small hill. She said he disappeared with the body, and he made several trips to pick up the concrete and the water.
We got over that hill, and Melissa knew. We found it.
He had buried her in a shallow grave right here where Obviously, Cheryl couldn't see what was taking place.
Look right?
Yes. Yep.
Right here?
Mm-hmm. But when we first came out here, we did discover what looked like a ring set for a fire. And so as we started to turn the rocks over, you could see remnants of concrete still on those rocks. Both girls' bodies were laid identical. They had only their socks left on. Their underwear was around their ankles.
The site where Christina was found was a short walk down the dirt wash from Ginger.
There was every indication that Christina was a quick dump. He did not take the effort to go up over onto this ridge like he did Ginger.
This is where it all started to unravel in front of Cheryl.
He ran around a corner, yelling and screaming, they found her, we have to get out of here now. And she was very confused by it.
She thought it was Ginger.
Correct. When she realized it was a second victim, she was just absolutely devastated.
The magnitude of this story feels so much heavier when you're standing where Ginger and Christina's lifeless bodies were abandoned. Nobody feels this more than Detective Melissa Pulver, with so much on the line now more than ever.
What's it like for you being out here?
It gets, I don't know how to describe that. I would say it gets kind of harder in the sense that more time goes by and I feel bad for those women. I'm getting older in my career, so I can be a little bit more emotional about it too, I guess. But I know we did everything we could to bring justice to Christina in this situation. I just wish we could have done more.
Yeah.
Yeah. He will have an exit date from prison if we aren't able to, link other crimes to him. We don't believe these were just the first two. We think there are many more that were before.
Do you think they're in this area, that there's more bodies possibly around us now?
I think that we can't rule that out. John Flowers has bragged to so many people about bodies being all over the desert. And so if you take that for what it's worth, we are in the middle of the desert and bodies could be all over out here.
March 9th, 2024. An odd email pops up in my inbox. Greetings. This is Craig Jacobson. Please, how may I assist you?
That's John Flowers, but his actual name is Craig Jacobson.
But he never really was just John Flowers. In fact, he was many different people. We know of at least 13 documented aliases he used over 2 decades. I wasn't expecting to hear from the killer himself from prison without me reaching out first. I wanted answers. What happened to Ginger and Christina? Why did he kill them? And are there others? Hello. I'll give you multiple interviews concerning all aspects of my life, the untold reasons for countless human killings, and I must be compensated monetarily. I didn't respond.
Does it scare you that he could be back out on the streets?
Yes. There is probably only one other person that I've investigated that is as scary as John Flowers. And I truly think that if he ever gets out, I believe he'll reoffend. I think he'll kill again. I absolutely believe that John Flowers has killed more than just Christina Martinez and Ginger Rios. Absolutely.
Maybe he did it right. The other times it was nobody knew. That's the perfect crime, when nobody knows it happened.
The Rios family struggles with this. Ginger's sister, Daniela, is left with anger.
He was so nonchalant about what he did to Ginger. I can't even imagine that would have been his first time.
On a little picnic here, Mark. It's Sunday. Daniela. Hi, Ginger.
Watching Daniela grow up and become a mother herself without Ginger pains their father. John Flowers stole their life together.
I feel robbed of her being here of her having children, of being close to my other daughter, Daniela. That really hurts real. Because I raised them very, very close. And this happens. There's the old saying that there's hardly anything worse than losing your child. You know, because it's your job as a parent to protect them. And when something like this happens, you weren't there to protect them.
No one has ever found where Christina's remains are. They lie at a cemetery among other Jane and John Does, some who never got their names back, and rest among the forgotten.
I still hope one day that I will get a grave to go visit.
Valerie Young will never be the same after she lost her best friend.
In my mind, a person dies 3 times. Craig may have killed Christina, her body. You die when you die. You die when people quit talking about you, and then you die when somebody officially stops thinking about you. And I'm never gonna stop thinking about Christina.
This isn't a story with a final chapter. Families felt time stop when Ginger and Christina were killed. Yet detectives can't slow time down, racing against it to search for other possible victims, a ticking clock counting down until Craig Jacobson sees freedom again.
A piece of me feels like this monster is out to get me next.
God forbid. I don't know how I would feel if I found out he did this to somebody else.
I don't know. I don't think there ever is an ending.